Hey, what's up, everyone? Dragon back again with.
Ashley.
Still got to do the little thing. So we'll do it when it's it'll be like Dragon, and then it'll be like Ashley. And we are back with yet another edition of the Kaiju Cataclysm. I always have to catch myself now because we've been doing so much of the Kaiju commentary that every time I go to say Cataclysm, I want to say commentary. But I caught myself this time, so I'm very proud of myself.
I'm proud.
Yeah, that guy. So today we're going to be talking about something we've been hearing about. There's probably anyone who follows, kaiju films and whatnot has heard about this movie going into production. But, we really haven't talked much about it, or we mentioned it a few times here, but quite honestly, there hasn't been a lot of concrete information, and that is Rampage, the new Dwayne Johnson film, aka The Rock. So for those who don't know, Rampage is based on an old arcade game from the original was released in 1986. For some of you guys who are old enough to remember, it was kind of the old Midway arcades. They did a lot of them. They've over the years released other Rampage games for various consoles, but basically the base concept is you originally played one of three monsters: a big giant wolf, a big gorilla, and a big lizard. So basically, giant wolf man, King Kong, and Godzilla, and you guys would kind of scale buildings. You could punch holes in them, grab people, eat them. And the basic premise was three people got transformed into these giant monsters. The gorilla's name was George, which was a guy. The lizard's name was Lizzie. Get it? It was a girl. And I don't remember the wolf, but basically what would happen, they would transform, and if they lost too much health, whatever, they would turn back into these little humans, and you would see them go down at the bottom of the screen and get all modest, cover their bodies, and they would kind of sidestep off screen like that. And then other games have been since released where you had those three, but they've expanded and included other monsters and things like that. But that was basically the premise of the game. Not much of a story. It was mostly just kind of you just played it for the fun, and we would always pretty much every place we'd go to would have it had an arcade spot, would always have Rampage, so we would always play Rampage, and that game over the years got many of my quarters. So then I found out that hey, they're turning into a movie. Now, at first, my first instinct was hey, great, another kaiju movie, because hey, giant monsters in a city. But then I was thinking about it, then the film buff in me came in, and I was like, yeah, but what's the story gonna be? Because there really wasn't much of a story, just people got turned into giant monsters and go. Which for an old arcade game that's all you need. But for a feature film, I'm like, okay, so right away, they're gonna have to kind of expand upon what the game itself was, which I don't think anyone's gonna have a problem with, because like I said, the story was, paper thin at best. Right off the bat, are you familiar with Rampage as a title?
Only from what you've told me.
Which is so. Have you just learned about Rampage just now? These past 5 minutes, pretty much. Yeah, I mean it's one of those classic arcades, but
As you know, arcades were dying out when I.
Yeah, she's a little younger than me. A little younger than me.
Our arcade at our mall didn't have it. So.
Yeah, they would have had it by then. This is like the 80s, and I mean even when I started playing it, I would have started playing it when it first came out, but by the early 90s, I'm talking 90, 91, you were already used, those kind of arcades were kind of the first wave. Already you were starting to see the next crop of arcades. So that's when you start seeing your Street Fighters, your the old Ninja Turtle games. Then as time went on, the Mortal Kombat games. So
I just played some Mad DDR.
Yeah, we didn't have DDR back then. So Rampage was out there at the same time, stuff like Altered Beast and all that. Remember Altered Beast? We get the cool transformation sequence, cut to the screen, the guy it would just change like that. That was a cool
I know
shit.
they remade that or
yeah,
or something.
I actually heard they're making an Altered Beast movie, but that's for another conversation for another time, for another show that I might have to make, just because might be making an Altered Beast movie. But yeah, so it was really kind of the old first wave, really, of arcade, in terms of really arcade games that would kind of stand the test of time and become like a name brand. But yeah, beyond that, not much to say. And the irony is, the director of this film will be the same director as San Andreas, and his name is, I'm going to do a little fact-finding.
Google food.
Yeah, while you guys enjoy whatever lovely image I'm putting on screen right now. Enjoy the loveliest opera. I'll just put on some San Andreas. So you guys are looking at San Andreas, the trailer right now. Which the irony is when we saw that trailer, my first thought was that basically just looks like a kaiju movie. Like you could drop a kaiju into any of those.
Wait, The Rock was in that too, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
they're teaming up again for this movie. So that's not great. Yeah, Brad Payton. Yeah. So basically, I was always saying when I was watching that trailer, I'm like, well, I'm not really into disaster movies because to me, disaster movies are always just kind of
They're
like,
kaiju movies without the kaiju. Where's the fun in that?
yeah, basically. And I was kind of saying like, to me, a disaster movie, while I get the whole premise, it's like you have to kind of survive it, and that's the point. But at the end of the day, like,
Why not just add in kaiju? It makes it so much better.
Well, yeah, I'm adding kaiju to anything; it makes it so much better. But
Rom-coms.
yeah, rom-coms. That'd be wonderful. Actually, for an April Fool's joke one time, when I was writing for like another website way back when, we had to do like an April Fool's article, and I did this whole like thing about a rom-com between Godzilla and Mothra, and Godzilla having to settle down and get like an office job, and it's Godzilla's readjustment to life, and Mothra was whatever rom-com, but it was great because it had Godzilla in it. So, but yeah, so. When I watched that trailer, I was like, I was dropping in like Godzilla or whoever in every shot. I'm like, this movie would be incredible because the level of destruction basically looks like, all right, if Hollywood is really going to do like a big budget, semi-grounded in reality, and I say that because with Pacific Rim, love that movie, so settle down. Because I can hear people go, what? Say some shit. Say some shit right now, motherfucker. I dare you. No, I love Pacific Rim, but yeah. Get that meme of like John Goodman from like The Big Lebowski, But that movie was kind of like very high sci-fi, like it had a very comic book feel to it. It felt like like a live action kaiju mecha anime, which I really liked. But when you looked at something like San Andreas, that was obviously more in our world. So I was like, all right, well, if you're going to do like a modern day big budget kaiju film, and this is before I think Godzilla even came out, that's what it would look like. Just drop in the kaiju in any one of those shots, and there you have it. Well, lo and behold, that seems like that's what they're going to be doing, is just like doing San Andreas, except now with a giant wolf, a giant gorilla, and a giant...
Well, here's the thing. So, for Rampage, I know you said there wasn't much of a story, but like, I'm assuming, is it taking place in our world?
Yes.
Like
now,
in modern day times?
I believe it's modern days. Now, the reason why we're doing Rampage now, we have talked about it before, because while there's no visual, I think the film is still in pre-production, so there really isn't, anything out there yet. But a plot synopsis has recently surfaced. So basically, the story is going to be as follows: like there's basically a space station in orbit that's conducting like these secret experiments, and something goes, naturally. Well, think about it. If you're going to do secret experiments, the best place to hide it is, space. It's not even on Earth. So, okay, you got me so far. And basically, something goes wrong, and these canisters fall to Earth containing this stuff. One lands in, I believe it's in Chicago. Let me double check again, too, because, again, I just want to make sure I get all the names of this right. Because, again, this literally just kind of...
just came out?
Yeah, it just came out. So, but basically, it should be in Chicago. Rampage movie. It seems like Rampage or Chicago is kind of the epicenter of a lot of
destruction.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the Transformers movies. Yep, Chicago. So basically, one falls to a zoo in Chicago where there's a gorilla named George who is being kind of taught sign language and working with a primatologist / ex-Marine played by, can you guess? Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And he's basically teaching George how to sign. Kind of like if you guys are familiar with like Coco the gorilla, how she was basically taught to kind of communicate and essentially conduct conversations with people. And you can basically go and, if you know sign language, have a whole you can have a whole conversation with it, a very intelligent conversation. Yes. Okay. She even made a plea to the UN not too long ago for like environment, and it was really her words, and they explained to her, and it shows you kind of the intelligence of these animals. The other one landed, I think it's in Wyoming. It's somewhere kind of in the plains. So, surprise, surprise, where the wolf is going to come into place. And the other one landed in the Florida Everglades. Now, this is where we're going to have a bit of a departure. Now, Lizzie was always kind of portrayed or implied as like she was like a big lizard. Now I hear she's going to be a big alligator, which
makes sense.
Whatever, I'm not going to nitpick on that. But there is a difference. But I guess if you're going to say North America, it explains why they'd be an alligator versus a big lizard.
Yeah.
And again, it's going to be now we're seeing something different.
She's just a giant skink.
Right away, we're seeing something different is that these are not humans who are being turned into these monsters. They are just animals that are, basically
Being
going
transformed.
on. Yeah, so they're exaggerated
exposed to the chemicals.
animals. Now, one of the things you notice about Rampage the game when you see kind of into the incarnations is they were always anthropomorphic. Like with the gorilla, it made sense because he basically had like the whole King Kong thing. But with with Lizzie and the wolf, they were upright on two legs, had dexterous hands and everything. They just kind of had the head of the animal, but they were basically anthropomorphic and they basically looked like kind of like your classic kaiju. It was based off a kind of a real thing. It was on two legs. So if you think of like King Caesar, for instance, from the Godzilla franchise, who's clearly meant to be like a big shishi dog, but because it had to be an actor. So even though, which is interesting because Toho did do quadruped kaiju, but it's interesting that they took, a shishi dog and put him on his hind leg. But basically that's the wolf, and Lizzie was essentially just take a lizard, now it's on two legs. And that was it. But now they're going with, animals that have been in shape. Because I was also thinking too, okay, is The Rock going to end up being like the gorilla, or is that one of these going to transform? But no, he's a primatologist. So this also kind of fed in a little bit, or kind of sort of maybe answered another question that I personally had, which what's the tone of this going to be? Because when I first heard of a Rampage movie, I was like, okay, sweet, kaiju movie, I'm in. But as we all know, not all kaiju movies have the exact same tone. Some are deadly serious. You have like Godzilla 2014, Shin Godzilla, The Return of Godzilla, the original 1954 Godzilla. There's a lot of, serious kaiju films. Even like the Gamera trilogy from the 90s, far more serious. But you have lighter stuff too. I mean, there's plenty of fun. Look at the Gamera movies for them, like the Showa era, with the exception of the first two. A lot of them are really kind of funny.
Colossal.
Yeah, Colossal, which we were going to do this episode on Colossal, but it's limited and we haven't seen it yet. So when we do finally see it, we will do an episode of the Cataclysm on that. But yeah, that's meant to be more of a funny, tongue-in-cheek movie.
It turns out it's super serious.
Yeah, we're gonna walk out of there just tears streaming down our eyes. But and even like Pacific Rim, while not silly or slapstick, was more kind of fun and
It was more like a fun action movie.
Yeah, we had a more of a sense of fun. Whereas like a Godzilla, the following year, nobody was having fun in that movie. Everyone was like, "This is some serious shit, bro." But it works. You have different tones. So my question was like, okay, you can have a lighter kaiju film. That doesn't mean it's gonna be a bad movie. Yeah. But my first thought was like, all right. It's probably what it's going to be. It's probably going to be tonally more like that. And not to say it won't still be, but now that I'm hearing, because again, I was thinking, okay, people being bombarded by like this and that, and turning to giant monsters, it lends itself, I think, right away. Some people might think to a bit more of a lighter, let's just have fun kind of, late Showa-esque, movie, which, great. But then I'm hearing, okay, they're already making more adjustments to make, which I think they're doing so to make it feel more realistic. Okay, it's more realistic, I guess, for a gorilla to turn into a giant gorilla, a wolf to turn into a giant wolf, a reptile to turn into a giant reptile, as opposed to like a human being turning into a big lizard, or a human being turning into a gorilla, a human being turning into a wolf. So that tells me that, okay, maybe they're playing it a bit more straight, at least. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to go the route of like, Shin or something and play like deadly serious, which we haven't seen any trailer, so for all we know, we could be, eating crow when that happens. But as it stands right now, I'm thinking, okay, I think they're going to go a bit more serious than the initial idea of making a Rampage movie would have lent itself.
Yeah.
So, okay. So that answers that. Again, we still don't know, like, how serious. And again, it might not be that much more serious. They could be just like, all right, we think that people turning into things might be a hard pill to swallow. But beyond that, we're going to go the same way with everything else. But so we know that The Rock is going to play a primatologist. We know so he's going to be working. So he's going to be working with George the Ape, which means, big surprise, the ape is going to be probably like
the first one,
the good guy
or,
kind of one,
one.
the main one, the one we're supposed to sympathize with.
Well, I was gonna say, like, if they're that spread out, are they just gonna kind of
Well, they're gonna this company that has developed them, or the stuff that made them. It's basically like a pair of twins who they're basically working on this stuff
in space.
Yeah, and they basically their company, from what I understand. Try to get their names right. Malin Ackerman and Jake Lacey are the two actors who are being cast to play them. And I guess basically when they realize it's kind of happened, they're basically trying to lure the monsters into Chicago to
a giant city.
Great plan. Well, I was reading again. This is just a bare bones story that's been released. So something tells me they probably didn't realize they were gonna. I mean, I'm hoping so. Unless again, that is how tongue in cheek the movie is. Like giant monsters. I know. Let's lure them here. You know, that's supposed to be
some tickets. Put on a show.
Yeah, like the dummy moment. But something tells me, okay, they heard these things infected, like or been mutated. Like okay, we know how to attract these things in. Let's just lure them here. You know, so that we don't have to go looking for them. Probably didn't realize they're fucking giant. Or they probably grow larger.
How big are they going to be?
Now, okay,
I know.
So
all the hard-hitting questions.
I know, just what the fuck are you doing to me, woman? I'm trying to look smart and informed here, and you're asking me like questions and shit that I'm supposed to have answers to. Like,
what else am I here for?
You know, why would I know the answers to these questions? I only host a fucking podcast and all that. But that's the thing. Now, the original Rampage, while they were big, they were probably around the size of like Kong is from like Skull Island, like about 100 feet tall. So big enough to be considered kaiju, but they're definitely would be on the smaller spectrum. And I think later games, again, I never played really in the old games. I only played like I think the most I ever played. I think there's one on Super Nintendo. I think it was the last one I played. So I've been out of the Rampage mix for quite some time. So forgive me. But in the original games, yeah, they're about like the 100 feet tall range. You know, they weren't like, you know, so huge that they're gonna, you know, knock down. Because that's the thing, they had to be able to climb buildings. Yeah, that was the thing. That was how you played the game. You would like climb up and down buildings, punch holes in, grab things and things like that. That's how you know, swat at like helicopters and stuff flying by. So you had to be small enough where you could do that, but still big enough where you're not just like, you know, like some people
running into him, running him over.
Yeah. So again, but you know, so if they go that route, I would say yeah, probably gonna be around the Kong from Skull Island size range. But then again, kaiju movies now, which big surprise, that's probably why they're making it, have now become more of a global box office thing. You know, when I see people like in mainstream media now using the word kaiju, it's awesome, but it's so.
But then you're like, is it just because of Pacific Rim?
Well, I think that's what that put the word in people's mouth, and then people realized after the fact that that's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is. It's not just that's what they call them in the movie. But technically, that's what they should be calling them in every movie. But that's technically the name of the genre, and now people kind of know that. So it's interesting now to kind of see that has become like a household words, I guess, or kind of, which is cool, but it's just so surreal because for so many years of my life, that was just something that only us in the in crowd knew about, in the know, and now everyone's like, oh yeah, kaiju, I know what those are, and I'm like, weird, but cool. So
then you think you're like a hipster.
Yeah, I know.
I know what it was before.
Yeah, and I caught myself a few times. So
Did you really?
Being that guy, and I could hear the voice in my head like, don't be that guy, don't.
Just be happy as mainstream.
Yeah, you piece of shit. Don't. You're better than that. Because I literally hate that kind of thing in every other thing I come across. Like, well, I knew about this, you know. Yeah, well, I just fucking found out what it was. So, you know, fuck it. So, yeah, I don't want to be that guy. But it seems like now people have realized that it is more than just, you know, what they call them in Pacific Rim. But that is the name of the genre. That's kind of, you know,
again,
designation for these kinds of monsters.
Now that you've seen movies that have the special effects that aren't going to get laughed at, I mean, obviously we like tokusatsu, but the normal general audience, it's obviously a hard sell.
Unfortunately, you could have the greatest suit ever, you know, but unfortunately for a lot of people,
now that CGI is where it is, and they see, oh, this is actually really badass.
Yeah, and again, I always said CGI will be a big selling
Yeah.
point. So, and I think a lot of other like Tokusatsu fans have since come around.
Yeah.
I know Skull Island was actually one of the big things I keep hearing a lot of them say. Okay, that they finally felt like they got like what they consider like proper kaiju versus kaiju action, and it still felt like the old guy in suit mentality the way they fought,
Yeah.
but without any of the restrictions of being an actor in a big heavy suit. You could kind of move more freely, but it still very much felt like that kind of fight. They weren't. It didn't feel like something completely different that would have never resembled like. I mean, you look at something like the fight at the end of Jurassic World with the T-Rex versus the V-Rex. While awesome fight, that is a fight that was very much could have only been done in CGI and nothing in a practical setting. You could not have got anything remotely like that. Whereas like the fights in Skull Island and even the fights in Godzilla 2014 felt like very modern versions of like the classic fights we would see when they were still using Tokusatsu
maybe the
effects.
radiation down the throat and then
Yeah, but I mean, you could have done that, but
it would have been a lot more difficult.
It would, I mean, granted, it would have been a lot more ingenuity of how they done it, but the shot would have had the same fluidity. But the point, it still feels like something Godzilla would have done. Like I remember when he ripped off Mechagodzilla's
it's like
head.
Shin. Everybody was like, "Oh, look at the suit! Look at the suit!" And then oh, there was CG.
Yeah, granted, the irony is he barely didn't. He didn't.
Well,
He was just kind of like.
But
and
still,
we're walking, and we're.
I mean,
walking.
that was honestly the truest.
Because
version of that, CG. I mean, you said there was some puppets, right?
Well, they had created a puppet. They had shot some stuff. I don't know if any of that actually made it into the movie, but I know they did create like a big kind of like maquette of like the bus.
I think I remember seeing something.
Yeah, and I know they did shoot some stuff. So whether it
but
made it,
for better or for worse, it's a perfect example. Of...
Yeah, even Japan, even Toho, the people who really built this whole thing up on using Tokusatsu effects have stepped into the modern age because they realized that even if you could do that with a puppet, because that's the thing, Shin could have very much could have been a guy in a suit for most of the scene. The irony is the scenes where you needed to be CGI were actually the scenes where you could tell it was CGI. Mm-hmm. But the scenes where he was just chugging along, he looked good. He was photorealistic. He looked fantastic. Even though he wasn't doing much, there he was. And I think big part of it was Toho trying to show like, we're with the times.
We're on the map.
Yeah, this is the way, to the mainstream. Because again, I think the reason why also this film did so well in the States when they did that limited release was because people who weren't necessarily, fans of this stuff were looking at it and said, well, this looks like a modern...
Like a Hollywood movie.
Yeah, so, okay, I'll go check it out. Again, there could have been a guy in a big rubber suit and I would have been first in line to see it, but unfortunately, the wider audience would not have. But now that they've shown that they can kind of recapture that magic from like those older films, using modern film techniques, all right, people are like, kaiju movies, we're on board. So now you get to a point where you get Pacific Rim. It chugged along and finally got there, so now we're getting Pacific Rim Uprising. Godzilla did really well, so we're getting, technically it spawned the MonsterVerse now, so we're getting a bunch of movies. Surprise, surprise. Other studios want to get on the mix, and you have...
What do we have that we can make a movie of?
Yeah, and you have the biggest action star in the world today, and from what I understand, the highest paid actor in the world.
Is he really?
Yeah, that's what I heard, or at least in Hollywood, is Dwayne Johnson. Oh, shit, yeah, I mean... Well, think about it. He's got just to maintain that physique alone. I mean, goddamn. But yeah, I mean, I'm bitching and moaning when I have to pay more than $50 for like protein powder to make shakes, and this guy just probably literally like.
That's all he eats.
Drinks the blood of werewolves. I don't know. Whatever he does, I don't know. But the point is, okay, the guy's job is to maintain that, and he's very charismatic on screen. People love watching him. He's not just the muscle; he's the man behind the muscle too. So. Big action star. All right. Well, he's already going to be playing Black Adam, so we already got like the superhero movie thing covered.
Is he?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. No. Yeah, he's going to be Black Adam unless something's changed. If so, let me know in the comments below. Okay. What other big kind of movie is popular now? Well, kaiju films are really starting to come on the rise. Okay, we have the biggest action star in the world. Let's get him in a kaiju movie. What do we do? Do we create something completely original? Oh, we could. I mean, Rampage or Pacific Rim was original, but it took time to get there. Now, you could make the argument that with someone like Dwayne Johnson added to the mix, that might have helped it along more. Or we can just play it safe and kind of
up the nostalgia.
Get something the best of both worlds. Something where you have that name that, like you said, brings in nostalgia, but at the same time does not have such a rich mythology that you feel like a slave to it. Like, we have to get this right. We have to make sure this is like this. We have to make sure this character has this backstory and this arc, which mixed with that character.
I mean, let's be real. Unless it's someone your age, most people aren't going to know what Rampage is.
I mean, they've made other games, but they're not like games that hold, like these are definitive titles in the world of gaming. It's like, yes, the games exist, people play them, but they're more just like fun games. Yeah. They're not meant to really be like, this isn't like Horizon Zero Dawn, where if they were to make a Horizon Zero Dawn movie
what's
now...
What's the point? That game's already...
The game's already a movie. But if they were to make it into a movie, there'd be so many I's they'd have to dot and T's they'd have to cross. They would be like... I mean, granted, I'm not saying it would make a good movie, but you couldn't just be like, yeah, let's make that a movie and just let go. No, you'd have to put a think tank together
you
and really
want to pull a Super Mario with it.
Yeah, or something like Rampage, the mythology is paper thin. So you have that nostalgia, you have that, the name brand,
and again,
but you have a lot of freedom to kind of do whatever the hell you want. And I get the sense, because already they're making changes, like Lizzie is an alligator, so a lizard, the fact that they weren't humans first, no one's honestly going to care about that, because at the end of the day, no one cares about that. And because of that, they have a lot more freedom to change things, to, quite frankly, probably make it a better story, without people freaking out, because it's like, no, that's not my Rampage. I don't think anyone has. I don't think you're gonna find anyone going, but that was mine. When was the last time you honestly gave a shit about Rampage? I had so many great memories at the arcade with my friends, blowing all our parents' quarters playing that game. With that said, I have not given nearly any thought to Rampage since before I heard about this was happening. And even then, my first thought was like, that's gonna be interesting. You know what I mean? As excited as I am to see it, it wasn't like when I heard Rampage, fuck yeah! Motherfucking Rampage, motherfucker! It's like, I was like, when I heard they were doing when I heard they were doing the Monsterverse, that was my reaction. When I heard they were doing Rampage, I was like, yeah, okay. Let's do that, But that's my point. Now, and again, this movie could be one of those things where it brings attention to, like, the property now. And then they'll make a super serious, like, RPG-style Rampage game. But again, something where it gives them enough freedom where they can sit around and be like, all right, let's do this, let's do that, and let's change this, and let's change that, without having to worry about, like, any kind of, like, fan backlash. And I'm sure there's some people out there who are literally, like, I'm sure there's some people who say, well, why? Why make a Rampage, movie, But, you're not going to please everyone. But I think the majority of the people are going to be, not so hung up on so many of the little details. I think if they have one scene where you see all the monsters scaling a building and punching a hole and grabbing someone out of a bathtub and eating it, and that could be a thing too in terms of their size, because obviously if they get like modern day kaiju size, they're going to be too big to do much of that. So they're going to be growing, from what I understand, throughout this, at least for a period of the movie.
Yeah.
So we might have some scenes where they're like the size they were in the original game. So they're still small enough where they can do that. And by the time we get to the climactic showdown, they'll be like, 100-meter tall things that are like, just karate chopping skyscrapers in half. Now, interesting thing about this. 2020, Godzilla and Kong are going to, spend an hour and a half bitch slapping each other before
Probably
they kind of
2 hours
before they bro hug it out and be like, all right, bro,
same time next week.
Yep. But my thing is like, okay, that's gonna, we've all been saying it's gonna be the big reptilian primate showdown. This comes out 2018, which I don't know if I mentioned this, but yeah.
Oh no, you didn't.
Yeah, it comes out 2018, same year as Pacific Rim Uprising. So we're gonna have two big budget kaiju films coming out that year. So
not bad.
Huzzah. Minus the big wolf, you have a big gorilla, and you have a big reptile, an alligator. And the irony is, if you look at like Godzilla from the legendary films, his look is very crocodilian. That's what a lot of people said they noticed about it. He had more of a crocodilian kind of aesthetic to him. So we might kind of get that fight before we get that fight. And here's the thing, I'm not saying that Legendary is not taking this seriously. I hope they're taking this seriously. But if there was ever maybe a slight little thing in their mind of like, well, we have Godzilla versus King Kong, that alone is going to sell tickets. So if it's not necessarily the most groundbreaking kaiju fight ever, we're still going to get asses in seats. I don't think so either. I don't actually believe that. I'm just saying if there was any of that.
Small chance of it.
Yeah. Well, if this fight, is amazing. Like when you see Lizzie and George like beating each other up, and now throwing the wolf in the middle of it. Shit. And by the way, this, depending on how you look at it, that great fan film that we've been seeing more and more release of, the Wolfman versus Godzilla, that hopefully we'll finally get it all one day. Well, if you think of the wolf, we're kind of getting basically that movie, that fan film with King Kong versus Godzilla all thrown into one. So that's going to come out 2 years prior. So when people go and see Godzilla versus King Kong, they're going to have that movie in their mind.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that Legendary is, they're swapping or they have to do corporate espionage and spying on them, but I'm sure they're keeping an eye on that because aesthetically, that they're going to beat them to the punch with that. So, unless stylistically the film is so dramatically different, we're going to kind of.
I was going to say, since The Rock's in it, I feel like it's going to be kind of.
But he does drama. I've seen The Rock do dramatic parts.
It's hard to say.
I mean, if you guys ever see movies like, Faster or Snitch,
he again, San Andreas, obviously.
Let's steal some of your liquid refreshment.
Mystery pink drink.
Maybe it'll make me turn into a giant monster. But I think it's gonna be more.
I guess I can't help think because Baywatch is coming out soon. I'm just like, it's like, where on the Rock spectrum is this gonna fall?
Yeah, I don't watch that trailer and say put a giant monster in there.
Well, yeah.
The Rock when he takes
the giant monster.
When he takes his shirt off, he pretty much he looks like he could just
He's basically the Hulk.
He looks like he just wrap his bicep around the Chrysler Building and flex and just shatter the top of it. But again, I think it could be something like Fast and Furious where it's not like tongue-in-cheek, like straight up like goofy comedy, but it's a little bit lighter.
I don't think it'd be goofy, but
what I was initially thinking when I heard of Rampage, I was thinking something along the lines of like a tone like Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, something like that where it's still both those films serve as a really good zombie movie and a really good buddy cop movie, but they play more fast and loose with the tone, so it adds that comedic element. Just I would say, okay, is this going to be kind of like that version of a kaiju movie, which I would actually have no problem with. That would actually be really cool. Like see the full spectrum of tones in kaiju cinema to show people like, yeah, you can do a lot of different things. They don't all have to be this tour de force. They can be lighter, they can be serious, and they can pretty much be everything in between because they have. But yeah, but again, until we really see like a trailer, we're not gonna know because
concept art.
Yeah, well, even then, concept art. Look at Shaun of the Dead had really gruesome zombies. Hot Fuzz had a guy getting freaking impaled. I saw a woman get stabbed in the neck with giant pruning shears. If you were just to show me those clips and nothing else, I would say these are darker, more serious films. And then you show me all the other shit around, I'm like, oh, okay. That's the thing. Gore, for instance, can be scary or it can be used for comedic effect. It depends on the tone surrounding the moment. So I think it's gonna be that first trailer. It's like the Baywatch movie, for instance, and bringing that up again. The original show took itself seriously, believe it or not. They didn't realize it was tongue in cheek. I kind of feel you really can't avoid it given Baywatch. And, let's be real, we weren't watching it for, before the internet where you could just Google something and get exactly what you wanted. No, you had to settle for a lot of times whatever was on cable. If it like, that'll do it. But now, and I was like, and so when I saw that we have the movie coming out, very intelligently, they're making it more funny. But they're not making it dumb. They're making it a rated R film, and they're having fun with it. They're gonna make it.
Zac Efron.
Yeah, it's gonna
cross-dressing.
It's gonna feel like a Hot Fuzz or Shaun of the Dead kind of feel. So it's gonna be a comedy, but it's gonna be kind of like really a funny like adult comedy, which I like. We have see if you see our feather duster floating behind us. That is our kitty cat, making sure
things are going well.
Yeah, checking all the lights, making sure everything good. She just flopped on her side and closed her eyes, so I'm assuming then we're good to go. But yeah, so you could do that with Rampage, and I would actually not be opposed to that. So
if they did it right, it could be really funny.
Yeah. But, hey,
Well, in a way, again, it's kind of like what again, we haven't seen Colossal yet, but it's kind of what I'm picturing it's going to be like. Like, it's not totally funny, but not totally serious. It feels like it's going to be some sort of weird mix. I mean, it's definitely gonna be leaning towards funny.
Yeah, but again, as long as it's not like dumbed down, like let's make it for kids,
Well, yeah.
funny. If you make it like an adult comedy, then
yeah,
that's fine. But again, until we see like a trailer or a teaser,
even like the logo,
we're not gonna. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I've seen films that have like super serious, normal looking logos, and then you look
True.
at the movie and it's like, oh. I mean, again, when we see something in motion of it, I think it's when we're really gonna get a sense of
tone.
the tone again. But yeah, especially now with I'm really curious to see what they're gonna do with George, because with Skull Island having come out, it's like the year before, it's like okay,
Yeah.
well we've already had now a big kind of upright. I guess thing is George gonna be just look like a gorilla just plus size, but then he's gonna be more like the Peter Jackson King Kong
Plus size.
plus. You know what I mean?
Nah.
Freaking try to lure me into that trap.
Don't you shame George.
Don't you body shame George. But yeah, or you're gonna do a thing where it's like, okay, he's gonna be more like upright, like a monster, and then he's gonna be more like the Kong Skull Island. So I'm gonna be very curious how they're gonna portray it. I'm sure they're not gonna want to feel like, oh, we're just doing the Skull Island Kong, and I'm sure the people at Legend are gonna want to do that either.
Yeah. Same
thing with Lizzie. Is she? I mean, I still keep calling her Lizzie. I don't know if they're gonna call her that now. Is Lizzie gonna basically look? Is she going to be on all fours? Is she going to be like just basically a giant crocodile? Or is she going to be on two legs and just kind of be like this big anthropomorphic kind of crocodile thing?
Yeah.
She's going to look like what was his name? Leatherhead from Ninja Turtles, the big crocodile or alligator guy. Yeah, so until we really see stuff from this, we're really not going to know. Again, the synopsis that I've read, it could be funny. It could also be more serious. It's really how they want to play. It's a loose enough shell or whatever you want to call it, where you could go either way with it. Really, I'm gonna guess probably, I don't know, maybe a bit more Pacific Rim. In terms of like the serious part, more like Pacific Rim serious, with maybe some funnier. I don't know, but I don't think it's gonna be like too like MonsterVerse serious. I think they're gonna have some fun with it, especially what it's based off of. Because if you don't want to really kind of have a little kind of fun with it like that, why do Rampage? Because it's Rampage. It's like it was not this dramatic, old school RPG. It was Rampage. You just turn into monsters and you punch buildings. You could grab naked people out of their bathtubs and eat them. Like it was what it was. So and because of that, I kind of want to see that on screen to some degree. I kind of want to see a kaiju film that kind of has a bit more fun like that. Because again,
a little sass to it.
No sass. Because again, we got to 2014. We had Shin. We're getting King of Monsters. 2019. We're getting Godzilla vs. King Kong. We're getting the Toho Godzilla trilogy, Monster Planet or Kaiju Planet. Sorry.
Whoa.
I know, I'm breathing. I got all choked up about that, which we will be. As soon as we get a trailer for that, believe me, we will be talking about that. So it would be kind of nice maybe to kind of get a movie that can kind of fall into this slot. I would very much like to see that. But, again, I'll be happy, even if it is more serious, that's fine. But again,
as long as it's a good movie.
Yeah. I'm more curious. I mean, I guess I'm curious about the tone. Oh, man. We got some angry geese out there. I don't know if you guys can hear that. They're going to fly right in through our window. Don't put it past them. When they start laying eggs, they get very...
aggressive.
Yeah, they'll do that.
They're worse than
that's what you should do. Have it land on, seriously. If you guys ever live around Canadian geese, have one of those canisters fall around a bunch of Canadian geese. One of those
that would
suckers.
be the worst.
That'd be the most
kaiju
vicious thing ever. I mean, these things are
like a roosting goose.
Like a pregnant goose, suddenly just growing. That'd be the most vicious and just savage thing ever. But
anyways,
I digress. But yeah, I mean, so. That tone, and also, I'm just curious to see what the monsters are going to look like. How literal are they going to make? Are they going to basically just make them look like giant versions of the normal animal? I mean, probably make them look a little bit scarier. But are they going to be on all fours, or is it going to be a situation of like, okay, they're going to be more monster-sized now? And obviously, I'm going to go on a limb here. I'm not really a limb. I'm going to assume that George, the gorilla, is probably going to be the monster we root for, our main one, because usually anytime you have like a primate-based monster, we always make them kind of the main one because humans can relate to a primate more because humans are primates, which is why I really, really hope that in Godzilla vs. King Kong, they don't pull some cheap shit and try to make Kong like, if you want to make it a tie, that's fine, but don't, it's Godzilla's franchise, he's the backbone, don't.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get to that one later. But yeah, so again, just the look of it, the tone of it, I'm very, very curious. I mean, I'm glad we finally got something of it more than just that it's happening. I know The Rock released like a photo, or like he tweeted out a photo of him in like the boardroom with like the creative team.
Oh, really?
Yeah, saying we're starting to work on this. It's happening, And I know The Rock is very picky and particular about the film, and it says that he realized that he himself is a brand and that his audience has expectations of him. So regardless of what he does, regardless of what genre it falls in, he wants to make sure that it is as entertaining as it can be. So when he's going to do a Baywatch movie, he's going to make it that, hard R, adult, funny movie that we want it to be. He's going to do the Fast and Furious movie. He's going to make sure that the ones he's in are going to be the most high octane. He wants every movie that he's in to be the most of what that movie should be, because he feels that that's what his audience expects of him, and that's a great mentality. That's a very hard working mentality. So because of that, and because I have really no reason to really doubt him on that, because his movie seems to deliver on that front. Rampage, the movie, I'm hoping that he can understand what it is and the best way to approach it nowadays and deliver that movie. And and again, like I said, I have not watched San Andreas because, again, it's just disaster movies just don't really interest me. But everything I saw of it, I'm like, you just drop a giant monster in there, and I would go, keep everything else the same, the look. You really just drop in the monster, CGI him right in, and I immediately I have interest in this.
Yeah. Because
everything else about it is like, it lends itself to that. So this kind of seems like that's what they're going to probably do now. Yeah. So I realize I kind of rambled on most, given your lack of knowledge of Rampage. But in terms of what you would want to see from it, never mind what you don't know about it.
Not knowing a lot about it, I just want to see a good movie, to be honest. I mean...
Oh, yeah. That's
I'm not really going to be picky.
I mean, is there anything you'd want to see maybe in a modern kaiju film that we haven't seen yet from kind of these?
Well, I mean, again, so far we haven't seen a three-way battle, so.
Well, no, we had the Mutos in. We have. Well, we had the Mutos. You had Otachi and Leatherback in Pacific Rim with the Jaegers.
But I mean, three very different kaiju.
I mean, I guess the Mutos are essentially just male, female. So you want three kind of very distinctive.
Yeah, because they're gonna have very distinctive fighting styles, and I'm assuming abilities. Do they have different abilities?
I can't remember the original. I think Lizzie could breathe fire. I think she could breathe fire.
Oh, that's handy.
I don't know. I was
gonna say, if it's a weird chemical, theoretically, it doesn't have to make them big. They could get powers.
I mean, I don't know if it's something. They haven't really been too specific on what it is. But again, and that's the thing too. They have powers and abilities, and which out of all three of them, which one do you want to see the most? Because you have the wolf, the reptile. I'm saying reptile. She's an alligator now.
I'm feeling Lizzie.
Lizzie?
I'm feeling Lizzie. Not just because she's a girl, but I just think a giant...
I mean, I'm assuming they'll keep her a girl. I mean, I guess in this now.
I mean, let's be real, it really doesn't matter.
I guess now because they're not starting off as human beings.
But then again, I guess out of all three, she's probably going to be the most like a Godzilla, unless they purposefully go out of their way to make sure she's not.
Well, again, between these three animals, I would already say a big alligator is already probably the most dangerous. I mean, alligators can, the Florida Everglades, they can
death roll.
Yeah, they can get up to almost 20 feet long sometimes. Yeah. These are big animals. I'm sorry, even a gorilla would get chomped down by one of these things. So out of the three of them, a big silverback, a huge alligator, and a wolf. The wolf is probably the lesser. I mean, wolves are big and strong, but
that's the thing. Do they make it? I mean, I'm assuming it's not going to be a giant wolf on all fours. It's going to be a werewolf looking one.
Again, if it's like the original, yes. But we don't know that. So that's my question. Again, that's the thing. If it's,
because that'd be pretty weird but badass if it was just a giant fucking wolf.
Well, that's basically what he looked like. He was a giant werewolf, essentially. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean a normal wolf, though, not a werewolf.
Well, again, are these going to look humanoid versions of the animals they are, or are they just going to be giant versions of the animals they are? That's...
Yeah.
again, I'm always kind of curious to see the wolf, because that's going to be because we've already seen, either if you look at the Peter Jackson version or not, you've already seen kind of like a big gorilla or a big anthropomorphic gorilla, and we've seen the 2014 Godzilla.
Well, that's what I mean.
So we kind of, so the wolf will be kind of like something maybe new. We haven't really seen that before. And even if he can go on his hind legs, I would love to see him do like sometimes what they've done with werewolves, where they walk on two legs, but if they go to run or something, they can kind of go down and lope. So something where he can kind of play around with his, same thing with all of them. Maybe they kind of rear up, I don't know. I think there's a lot of room for
possibilities.
For possibility, or a lot of creativity. They can do a lot of different things here, and I hope they take advantage of that. And I hope they try to really make their own movie and not just kind of try to do what everybody else is doing, because that's how you're going to stand out against everybody else. But yeah, so Rampage, the movie, it's happening, and it's full steam ahead. We're getting it next year unless it gets pushed back for whatever reason. So a lot of kaiju films coming out. I mean, we had Skull Island this year, Colossal, if we ever get to see it. If it ever gets released anywhere around here, I'd very much like to see it. Next year we have Pacific Rim Uprising, we have Rampage. Then 2019 we also have Godzilla Monster Planet this year. Then we have a lot of kaiju movies coming out, and if Toho ever does another Shin or another live action Godzilla movie, we got that. So
they probably will.
Yeah, I mean, that movie did really, really well over there, and it's got very good accolades overseas. So why not? But yeah, so Rampage, I mean, not much to go on now, but we finally got a bit of a story. We got the crux of what it's going to be about in terms of what form that'll take. I'm sure we'll learn that as as we get closer and more news comes out. And again, it's a movie starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, so studios aren't going to be too silent on it. They're going to really want to pimp this out as the next Rock movie. So I'm sure as soon as they have stuff to start releasing, they'll start releasing stuff, and when they do that, we'll be back on here talking about that. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Kaiju Cataclysm. If you guys enjoy this, please subscribe. We do usually one of these every month. Trying to do more, because again, there's more news coming out, and hopefully we get a trailer, or at least some imagery of what Godzilla looks like in Monster Planet, because that's the only reason why I haven't talked about that yet. We have the story, we have the plot, we have
characters.
Yeah, we see what the characters look like, but we haven't seen him yet. We haven't seen the star. Like I need to see him.
Classic Japan, holding
back. I want to see him, so when we finally talk about that movie or movies now, we can have like a really well-rounded, well-informed discussion. So make sure they didn't I'm curious to see if they went wild with his design again, because they took a lot of liberties with Shin. Maybe they're going to do same kind of thing but differently with this. But we'll
talk about
that when we
Don't
get
you
there.
guys
Don't you worry as soon as that happens. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. If you have not already, please subscribe to her channel. I will leave a link to that in the description section below. And as always, we'll catch you on the next one. Peace!